Welcome to The Record. I'm Mark Maxwell. Cori Bush's 2 terms in Congress will come to an end in January. St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell defeated her on Tuesday in one of the most closely watched primary races in the nation. The Democratic nominee for the 1st Congressional District in Missouri joins us now. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
You called this a nasty race. I was probably putting it mildly. In your acceptance speech, you indicated perhaps you had seen some of this noise online. A lot of that noise came from young liberal progressives, many of whom smeared you as a, quote, plant. They called you a puppet, someone who they felt could not speak for himself on big issues like abortion because they thought that pro-Jewish groups controlled you with their money. Do you feel that any of your critics at any time in this race crossed a line from just scrutinizing outside money campaign finance into racism or anti-Semitism?
You know, there were things that were said that absolutely crossed the line. And, you know, I'm from Missouri. I'm an African-American man, and Missouri's had its issues of racism and things of that nature in our history. And I've never been called anything like some of the things that I was called during the election. That said, you know, I believe this region is a sleeping giant. I believe this region, I think folks in this region are tired of nothing getting done. They're tired of this region that's been dying a slow death, losing population, and we're not doing anything differently. We have to address our public safety and our gun violence. The #1 killer of young black boys in this district is gun violence, and that's not okay with me. And speaking of the Dobbs decision,
I want to ask you about some of those things you mentioned in your speech here in a minute. Let's just wrap this up for a minute. This is our kind of post-mortem of this race. Could you have won this race without support from AIPAC?
I believe we would have won this election regardless. I think at the end of the day, when I talked to voters, voters heard every message from both candidates. They saw the way we were campaigning, and we were talking about my record and what we wanted to do, and they heard the Congresswoman's divisiveness and her campaign, which was basically about division. And I'll just say this, most folks, they appreciated the fact that we shared, instead of division, a vision for the St. Louis region and moving this region forward.
You jumping into this race, though, did force some uncomfortable conversations. This is our first time talking to you since that private phone call was leaked that we published. Yeah. In that call, you did say a couple things like, be really tough to run every 2 years. You promised, you vowed you wouldn't run against her in that phone call. I understand things changed. I want to ask you a different question, though, because.
But you brought it up, though. So
I did bring it up, but I want to ask you this question, because I'm also aware of some older black men in the community who are excited to see you run for the Senate. Some even donated to your Senate campaign, and then they were frustrated when you ran against her instead, and they felt sort of left in the lurch. Both of you and Cori Bush on the nights of the election mentioned some of the tension and the friction left over in the district. How do you speak to those people who might have wanted you in the Senate but voted for her for Congress?
Well, first and foremost, the voters spoke. I'm very proud of the victory. It was a resounding victory in St. Louis County. I think we won every township except maybe 2. Voters wanted a message, they wanted a vision for this region, and that's exactly what we campaigned on. Now, you brought up the phone call. That was that was secretly recorded by the Congresswoman, and you know,
which is legal.
Which is legal, but but who does that? Let's be honest. Like, do you do that with your friends?
I don't. I also don't suspect my friends are trying to take my job.
Well, either way, though. But I know a lot of elected officials who are very reluctant to want to speak to the Congresswoman because they're afraid that they might be recorded. And at the end of the day, at that time, as you know, when that call was made in June, I was running for the Senate. So I was not intending to run for that office. And because voters in my district and around the state and around the country, the calls were coming for me to get into that race because we weren't having effective representation, and so I changed my mind. But at the end of the day, we made our case to voters. We made our case on why we would be the more effective candidate. We made the case on the relationship that we have with community, with criminal justice reform, when we're talking about making this a safer place. And I have those relationships with law enforcement to be able to do that. And when the Dobbs decision came down, my office was on day one announced that we would not be prosecuting those cases. And so I think my positions have been clear for 10 years now as a Ferguson City Councilman, as well as the county prosecutor, and voters agreed with that.
We could start to learn a lot more about the specific contours of your position on those very issues. Cori Bush was very vocal on two things in particular around abortion access. You also listed abortion access in your acceptance speech as something that was important to you on policy. So let's start there. I wonder if you would carry these things on. For example, would you support and spearhead an effort to continue Congresswoman Bush's push to restore or to enact the Equal Rights Amendment?
I believe that we need to codify Roe versus Wade, but also I believe that women should have equal rights. No question about that.
That's a little bit more of a vague statement. Do you want to see the Equal Rights Amendment
Absolutely,
enacted?
absolutely. I believe in equal rights. I don't know how more clear I can get on that. But we're jumping around to issues, and let's talk about the issues that matter to the folks in this district. And that's one of my biggest problems in this election, is that we couldn't get a debate. No one would debate, as you know, so we couldn't talk about issues. So these national narratives took hold of this campaign. But what I was pleased to see was that when voters came to the polls, and I was talking to voters all day, voters saw through that. They wanted someone who was going to go up there and champion the issues that matter to folks in this district. And what matters to folks in this district is the gun violence. What matters to folks in this district is the lack of health care, quality and effective health care, as well as jobs and industry in this region. Those are the things that matter to folks in this district.
The Equal Rights Amendment, as I think you're aware, touches a lot of abortion
We're not
and
arguing about
access
that. I
issues
agree.
as well. So I don't think it's...
I agree, Mark.
Let me ask you one other question, too, about the Comstock Act. We learned this year that a hyper-conservative think tank behind Project 2025 has laid plans to revive the Comstock Act of 1873. The Department of Justice right now considers that sort of a outdated chastity law that they don't enforce, but it still is on the books, and it treats contraceptives as obscene and illicit, makes it a federal offense to mail abortion pills across state lines. Congresswoman Cori Bush in the summer of this year introduced a bill to repeal the Comstock Act. Would you sponsor or author a bill like that?
I do not believe the government should have any hand in what a woman, or in this case, a man, can do with respect to birth control, with respect to reproductive rights. And so absolutely I would be for championing that bill as well.
To repeal.
I should say. But there's a lot of things that we need to address, and obviously that's one of them. And I've been very clear on where I stand with respect to reproductive rights, and I believe that means the right to an abortion, but also the right to birth control and things of that nature. Absolutely.
In your acceptance speech, you said this. You said, quote, "We don't want to see one innocent person harmed anywhere in the world, but we are going to stand with our fellow democracies around the world." My question to you is, how long are you willing to stand with our fellow democracies like Israel if they continue to harm innocent people?
Well, I think that that's a loaded question, and I think it's missing what's happening on the ground there. There's a terror state. Hamas is in no uncertain terms a terror state. Their goal, which is stated in their charter, is the destruction of Israel. When we hear chants of death to Israel, they are often followed by death to America.
But you don't conflate those with innocent people.
Let me be clear. That's where I'm getting to that point. So when we want, so what is getting in the way of a lasting peace process is Hamas, because Israelis, Palestinians, by and large, want to live peaceful lives. They care about their families, but you have these terror states, these terror networks who have no desire to see peace in that region, and that is the biggest encumbrance to a lasting peace resolution, and that's something that has to be addressed. So yes, I think that World War II has taught us that we have to stand by our fellow democracies, that and we are in the Ukraine and Israel, but we do want to make certain that no innocent Israelis or no innocent Palestinians are harmed. Absolutely.
I want to make sure I'm hearing you clearly. We'll move on to our last two topics, I promise. But do I hear you saying there that at this juncture, the only option is a military option?
Well, I didn't say that at all. I mean, I think that's a very...
You said you had to address Hamas, which is a terrorist
Well, yeah, you have
state.
to address the Hamas.
How do you do that without a military option?
Well, with Hamas, I don't know if there are many options other than the military option, because Hamas can end this war tomorrow. If Hamas freed the hostages and left the region as a ceasefire agreement was on the table just like that, and that was months ago, this war would end immediately. But this organization has no interest in a peaceful resolution, and I think we have to be clear-eyed on that.
Okay, last two questions.
Okay.
Congresswoman Cori Bush's speech, her speech after she announced her defeat on Tuesday night, it's going viral online. A lot of people are watching her in a clip where she mentions you have this lawsuit that is happening around the same time you'd be swearing the oath of office in your inauguration, should you win in November. Should the voters of the 1st Congressional District, do they deserve to know what's in that suit before it comes public? And part of the allegations in it, if I can just ask,
this is a civil matter.
Sure.
This is not a criminal matter or a
I
federal
understand.
matter. So let's just be clear on what it is. What has been alleged is that in a case where our victims, which happen to be officers, told us that the recommendation that our office had made was too high because what was in the statement of facts was not completely accurate, they told us that we should reduce the recommendation. We looked at it, we agreed with them. The prosecutor who handled the case, her position is that since I disagreed with her, it must be from discrimination of age as opposed to just doing my job and making the recommendation. That's what this case is about. And so the fact that after a tough election, that the Congresswoman, instead of giving me a call, which she did not do, or working to bring this region together, because at the end of the day, if this is about the region, if the region is the priority, then that means we all got to work together. I've said before in my speech, which you have, that the Congresswoman is an opponent. She is not an enemy. And I would look forward to working with her. I would look forward to working with every elected official, stakeholder in this region, whether they supported me or didn't support me, because at the end of the day, we want to move this region forward, and that's what I'm committed to doing.
Some of the allegations in that same suit also suggested there was a toxic work environment, and that's a claim that is often included in suits. Let me just ask,
typically in lawsuits,
when this suit is all over, is that going to be the entirety of what we learn about Wesley Bell's office and the prosecutor? Is that there were some disagreements on prosecutorial discretion, or are you aware of any other female employees who were subjected to improper behavior?
Mark, the individual who filed that lawsuit left 9 months after I got in office. So this was over 5 years ago. It sat because it is a frivolous lawsuit. It sat, and then as the election got closer, then it started getting pushed again. At the end of the day, we have an office of 160 folks, 75 attorneys, many of which were there in the office before I got there and have bought in and signed on. You do not hear about dysfunction in our office. We have men and women that work together, that pull together. And I can tell you right now, when I was running for Congress, which technically I still am, the support that I got from that office is amazing. And let me just be clear. The office never had a woman in the executive leadership. I've hired 3 women. The office had never had a woman investigator. I've hired 5. So I'm proud of the diversity, the inclusion in our office. I'm proud of the men and women who've come together to work together in that office, who continue to do so, and we do a good job every day. And of course, in politics, you throw the mud,
sure,
but it doesn't stop.
And you can say anything in a lawsuit. I do want to get a specific answer from you, though. Does that mean you're not aware of any women ever being subjected to improper behavior in the office?
There's never been one. There's never been one complaint. There's never been one allegation with respect to that, other than her saying that my decision to change the recommendation. Well, I don't know if someone did something
Okay.
rapidly.
Well, to you. Okay, let's move on. There's another big piece of legislation that is stuck in Congress. You would be inheriting this big headache, but it's something that has affected a lot of the lives in North County. The Radioactive Exposure Compensation Act,
Absolutely.
the fallout from Coldwater Creek and the atomic bomb and all the building there. I don't know what the issue is, but it seems like every time the House or the Senate gets some bill together, halfway puzzled together, it falls apart in conference committee. Some of this is like inside baseball and how the sausage is made in Congress. But what can you do differently that can bring compensation home to victims who are harmed by their own government?
I think the RECA Act is a good piece of legislation. It has not passed in the House as of yet. And, you know, inside baseball, you know, there's some Congress folks who don't work as well with their caucus. We're going to work with our caucus. I think that we can get that legislation passed. I think it needs to be passed.
Are you comfortable with the price tag? Because that seems to be the sticking point.
Listen, are you comfortable with folks who have gotten cancer, who are searching for answers to what we all can see is a problem? And so I think that that's something that we need to address. We need to make certain that folks are compensated, and we need to make sure it's cleaned up.
All right, he's the Democratic nominee running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District. We appreciate your access and sitting down to answer some tough questions during and after, and hopefully
Always. That's the
moving forward.
job.
All right.
That's the job.
Thanks for your time.